Check it out, everyone. I've been looking for one of these for a long time. It's a 1985 Kawasaki KDX80. It's the bike I rode as a kid, and that's why I wanted it. Unfortunately, this one doesn't run, so in this video we're going to dive into it and see what's going on. But aside from that big issue, check it out. The bike is really nice. It's all original, and I believe just about 100% complete. No scratches in the gas tank. Yeah, the graphics are a little faded, but those could be replaced. No rips in the seat. Got an aftermarket rear fender. Number plates are original. No rust on the wheels. Yeah, just really, really nice. Wheel bearings seem okay. Front fender's a little rough. Might be able to sand that out, polish it up. Exhaust pipe. No dents whatsoever anywhere on the exhaust pipe. Original silencer out back. Airbox intact. So many times these airboxes are missing. People just put a pod filter off the back of the carburetor. Kickstand is there. So nice. So happy I was able to pick this up. So we need to get this running, and if you take a closer look, there are some issues. So here's what I've found so far. Intake manifold is very old, almost 40 years old. I believe it's the original one. And there's a lot of dry rot, there's a lot of cracks, and I think some of those cracks go through and are probably leaking air. This overflow hose here, I'm not sure what's going on here with the zip tie and the crimping. I don't know if there's a float needle issue going on. The gear oil looks like chocolate milk, so we're going to drain that and refill it and keep our eye on it. Hopefully it doesn't turn into chocolate milk again. I did put new gas in the tank. I did take a look at the filter off camera. It's just a sort of makeshift filter, kind of like almost like a coffee filter that they zip tied into place. So we'll pop in a proper filter there. The crankcase breather is missing, so I ordered a new one of those, and we'll see about popping that in place. So we've got a couple little things to do to this bike, and hopefully we'll be able to get it up and running today, because I would love to hear my childhood bike running by the end of this video. So let's dive into it. Well, let's give it a kick and see if we can maybe just get it to sputter. All right, gas is on. Gas in the tank. Choke. Kick lever doesn't want to come back. Yeah, getting nothing. So I was just about ready to remove the carb, and I noticed something, and maybe you noticed too during the introductory bit, but the cap here, it's not even screwed down all the way. It was pretty loose. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. Wouldn't that be funny if that was the issue, why the bike wasn't starting? Would not make for a very interesting video, that's for sure. But I'm curious. I'm going to kick this thing over and see if we get anything out of this engine. Gas on. Choke. Nothing. All right. Didn't think it'd be so easy. I've been thinking about this overflow hose and how the previous owner has used a zip tie to close it off. You're not supposed to do that. Obviously, the overflow hose has to allow the carburetor to overflow if the float needle is not doing its job properly. So I don't know if there's a float issue, a float needle issue, or something else going on in this carb. Before I pull it off, I'm just curious. I'm going to go ahead and clip the zip tie off and just see if gas starts pouring out the end. Now I do have the gas on and it's hooked up to the carb. I have a bowl down here to catch the gas, which, yeah, it's pouring out. So there's probably something going on with the float or the float needle. Oh, that's interesting. When I lift the hose up, the line of fuel in the hose pretty much levels off with the top of the bowl, which would mean that the float needle is working correctly. And yeah, the line of gas in the hose is like, I don't know if you can see where my finger is, but it's pretty close to the top of the bowl. Huh. Well, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get the carb off. We'll take a look inside and see if we can solve this issue. Tell you, a lot of gas drained out of that overflow tube. And it's not the drain, but like a whole bowl's worth of gas just drained out. But anyways, we'll go ahead and get the carb off. We'll take a look inside and hopefully we'll be able to solve that mystery. And we got to take the carb off in order to access the intake manifold. Probably just going to go ahead and replace that. I did get the new one, so that's all ready to go. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We'll also get a new air filter in our air box here. Just double checking that I've got the gas off. Just unhook the fuel line. And there it is. Yep, OEM, made in Japan. Probably be able to clean these up pretty good. Put some new graphics on them. I think they'll be looking sharp. So there's a filter on it, and it probably does okay, but not as great as a properly fitting filter. So we'll go ahead and change that out. Cage looks real good. Yeah, so many times on these bikes, the air box in the cage is missing. People take them off, they lose them, and then they just use like a pod filter on the back of the car, but which isn't a great way of going, because unless you support it with brackets, it's bobbing up and down, putting extra strain on the manifold, making it crack prematurely. But yeah, it's great. We've got the original cage, the original air box. Just making sure this thing fits. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. So I guess that just sandwiches and kind of sticks out like that. I don't think I'm supposed to trim that. If any of you out there own a KDX80 and you know what I'm supposed to do with this filter, then say something in the comments. But for now I'm going to leave it because I think this is correct. You just kind of sandwich it in there and you tighten this down here, and that creates the seal. Yeah, so here's the intake manifold, and I don't know if you can see it, but there are a bunch of cracks right around the boot where it hooks into the carburetor, and then there's a bunch of cracks all along the side of the manifold. It feels a little rough inside with my finger, so I think some of those cracks actually go through, and if they do, they're creating an air leak, and that's either going to make the bike run really, really lean, or it's just not going to run at all. And the backside of the manifold is even worse. Here's the new manifold. You can't buy these through Kawasaki, through the OEM list anymore. They just don't make them or ship them out or whatever. Sometimes you can find old ones on eBay, but if you do, they're going to be almost 40 years old and beginning to dry rot. But there's a company, hotfootmoto.com, and they make brand new ones out of polyurethane. 75 bucks. Feels pretty good. They claim it's better than OEM. So we're going to go ahead and install this and see how it works. Yeah, so this manifold has seen better days. It's completely flaking off. It feels a little rough inside. I think some of those cracks are coming through. I can't really see daylight through it, but it's just, oh yeah, no, that thing is completely off. Okay. Yeah, right. Oh yeah, I can see right through that. Right through here. It comes out right here on the other side, the whole thing. Oh wow. Yeah. This thing's done. This thing is done. Okay, well, glad I have the new one. Let's check out these reeds. Reeds look good. No cracks. No chips, no splits. I mean, these actually look like they've been replaced somewhere along the way. So good. Reeds are looking good. We'll go ahead and reuse those. This is our first insight into the side of the cylinder. You can see just the intake side there. Feels pretty smooth. Looks pretty good too. I don't think I can get the camera in there, so just take my word for it. The 1 inch square area that I can see looks pretty good. We'll do a compression test here soon enough too. But yeah, okay, reeds look good. We're just gonna go ahead and pop those back in there. So Hotfoot Moto, with the new manifold, they do supply new bolts. However, they're a little bit longer. See that? So I'm going to go ahead and use the OEM bolts. I just thought of something. I wonder if the thickness here is greater, and maybe that's why they provided some longer bolts. Let's see. Well, there you go. That's the difference there. Look at how much thicker this new manifold is. So that explains the longer bolts. So I take that back. We'll go ahead and be using the longer bolts. Okay, so next, I think we're going to try to get this new crankcase breather in, right in that hole there. So fortunately I was able to get an OEM crankcase breather right through Kawasaki. The question is, are you able to get it in without taking the case apart? And I tell you, it's not looking good. That is not going to go. Okay, well, apparently you have to split the case to get this in, unless I'm overlooking something. But there's no way that big old end is going to slip in there along with this big fat grommet. Okay, I think what we'll try to do is I'll try to get just the grommet in, and then I'll just slide this hosing in there, and then perhaps sometime soon we'll have the crank open, and we could use the OEM crankcase breather. Let's see how this goes. Let's see if I could even get this in. Oh yeah, actually it feels Nice, okay. And then let me get some oil on that, see if that slides in. It's too fat. All right, let's see what else we have. Might be a skinnier hose. Too skinny. This is just some like airline tubing. Okay, well this will have to do for now until I could find some tubing that's just a little bit smaller than this that will fit snugly into that grommet. Right now I've got the grommet in and I got this airline coupling, I think it is, automotive airline company coupling, and this tapered end seems to fit snugly in here, and that's just going to help prevent some water from going to the crankcase. I'll have to be extra careful when I'm cleaning the bike and avoid water until I get that set up properly, if I could even get this thing running. So let's not spend too much time on this crankcase breather, because honestly that's probably not going to prevent it from starting up. It's vented out to the atmosphere anyways. It's not supposed to be blocked. So we'll go with that for now, and let's start getting pieces back on here. Let's get the air box back on, and then the carb, and then go from there. Supposed to be a bolt there that is missing, so I'll have to find something that works in that spot. For now we'll just kind of fit it loosely in like that. There it is. I knew there was a bracket for this. Right under the air box there. Okay. Alright, well here's our carburetor. Let's get into it and see if we could figure out what's going on. One thing to know, whenever you're removing screws from a Japanese carburetor, use JIS bits. They're shaped and cut a little bit different from a regular Phillips head. They'll fit a lot better into those screws, and you're less likely to strip things out. There's hardly any gas in here. I guess some of it spilled out, but where's the rest? Huh, all right. Well, it's pretty clean in here. It looks like somebody's been in here recently. Really not bad at all. Alright, so checking out this float assembly. It looks like the level is set correctly. Horizontal line on the float, parallel with the edge. All right, maybe it's the float needle. Float's nice and dry, sealed. Alright, it looks like it has the correct float needle. All metal. Sometimes they have a little rubber tip, but not on this carb. It's all metal and it looks nice and smooth, no scoring. Tip is nice and sharp. The spring works. Why is this overflowing? Alright, well, let's take a closer look at the float assembly. I mean, there's not much to it. There's just this piece that bolts in. There's a seal, like a gasket that I could see. Right here, it's almost like a washer. It's there. There's no O-ring or anything in here. There's not supposed to be. I don't know. Well, we got this far, so let's go ahead and take the whole thing apart and give it a good cleaning and reassemble it, and who knows, maybe we'll find something as we're cleaning it up. This is the main jet. Well, I can see light through it, so it's clear. So stock main jet on this bike is a 190, and this is a 210. It'll probably still work. Pilot should be a 30. I'm not going to be able to read that. I'll check it off camera and I'll post it on the screen when I edit. It's supposed to be a 30. The gasket looks real good still. Like I said, it looks like somebody's been in this carb recently. It's clean. There's a couple new parts. It's not the original jet. It's recommended to replace all these gaskets whenever you're rebuilding a carb, but I'm all about saving money too, and oftentimes you could get away with reusing these things a few times without having any leaks or issues, so that's what we're going to try to do. But you definitely need to remove all these gaskets before you spray the carb down with any kind of carb cleaner, because that stuff just destroys these things. Sometimes there's O-rings hiding in here, but not on this carb. This carb actually does not have any O-rings, as far as I know, at least according to the diagrams I've looked at. Just the bowl seal and the little gasket around the float assembly is all I'm aware of. We'll go ahead and remove the idle knob here. On a lot of carbs, there's an O-ring in there, and actually it looks like, well, I was going to say it looked like there was an O-ring in there, but it actually just looks like some dirt. So, no O-ring. Let's see if we can get this choke off. We're not going to spray the choke. There's plastic bits, some rubber bits. Got to keep that stuff away from this choke cleaner. I think this is cracked. Yeah. Oh my, yeah. How does that happen? Okay, well, that explains a lot, because this entire overflow tube is cracked. From top to bottom, hairline crack. So that explains why the drain hose was zip tied, because this thing was draining from the bottom. The fuel would go right through that. I bet. Yeah, look at that, right through the side. Whoop! Okay, well, I'm gonna need to find a new bowl. Unless there's a way to fix this. Okay, well, I'm going to do a little research and see if there's a way to fix this, or if I could acquire a new bowl. Because this is definitely not going to work with that big old crack all the way from top to bottom. Well, I found one. Borrowed one from a buddy, went ahead and ordered one on eBay, but that's going to take a few days before it gets here. So in the meantime, I just wanted to reassemble it with this one that I'm borrowing to see if we could get this bike running. Still don't know what would cause that to crack like that. Just checking to make sure the O-ring is on there. And it is. This is an idle knob, so we'll have to tinker around with that if we could get the bike started. We'll adjust the idle using this. Alright, well, it's time to get this back on the bike and test it and see. Hopefully this is no longer overflowing, and hopefully the bike will start. So let's give it a try. Alright, we'll go ahead and get the carb back in. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but on the inside of the carb here, right on the choke side, there's a little metal nipple sort of sticking out there. And that's where this side of the slide slides over. And then the other side of the slide that has this groove, now that's going to fit over the air screw. You see the end of the air screw coming through there. Maybe, I'm not sure if you can see that or not. But that's how that goes. If you don't put it in that way, the slide's not going to fit. So we'll get this lined up here. And you'll know, because see how it's hitting and not going down? It's not in the right spot. Turn it a little bit, and there it goes. The whole spring, everything should just be swallowed up. And then you can thread the cap on. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Check the throttle. When you release the throttle, you should hear that snap. Make sure our clamps are on. Alright, so far so good. Alright, well the carb is back in the bike. The fuel line is hooked up to the carb, and we're about to test this overflow line. I'm going to turn the fuel on, and hopefully fuel doesn't come pouring out the end. Here we go. Alright, fuel is on. Got to give it a moment for the bowl to fill up. The bowl should be full by now, and nothing's coming out of the overflow, so I think we're good. Yeah, so that's the oil. The good news is that I don't see any metal flakes in there. The bad news is that it looks like chocolate milk, which means water has somehow gotten into that oil. And hopefully it just was because they left a cap off and they were washing the bike and some water got in there, or maybe they went through, well, I don't know. That gearbox is supposed to be closed off to everything else. If water was getting in through the crankcase breather hose that's exposed and making its way into the gearbox, then that means there's an oil seal that's bad. So I don't know. We will have to see. I'm going to go ahead and put some fresh oil in it. And for now, I'm just going to monitor it because the bike's not even running yet. So 550 milliliters or 0.58 quarts. I'm going to go ahead and use wet clutch oil, 10W40. Alright, well, the plug is an NGK BPR5ES. And it doesn't look bad. Just medium brown. It's not new, but it's close to new. The plug gap looks okay. I really don't see anything wrong with this plug. Alright, let's see. Let's see if we get a spark out of it. I'm just going to wipe up a little bit, make sure there's no fuel. I don't want to light the bike on fire. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's good spark. I don't know if you can see it, but it's, yeah, there's good spark. Hey, so check this out. This is the KDX80 service manual, not the owner's manual, the entire service manual. So thin compared to a modern KX250 service manual. These old little bikes, a lot easier to work on. And now it's time to see if this thing will start up. All right, gas is on. Choke is out. Well, it starts, but it's revving really high. So let's see if we can adjust the air screw a little bit and do a little something about that. Wow, that's really revving high. Well, it's possible I did not tighten down this manifold enough. Let's see. Oh yeah. That definitely went around a few more times. Same with this one. We'll get the two on the back side, and then we'll give it another try. Yeah, so these were pretty loose. I was able to turn each one a few more times around. This one needed quite a bit, actually. So when the engine was revving real high like that upon startup, that's a sign that there's some sort of air leak, and perhaps the air leak was at the intake manifold because I didn't have these bolts tightened down. Hopefully it's that simple. Alright, I've tightened down the manifold and I reset the air screw to 3 turns out. Let's see what we get. Choke is in at this point. Gas is on. The bike starts. It took more than a day, mainly because I was waiting for things to arrive in the mail, but mission accomplished. The bike is running. Next up, I'll take the bike out, see how the clutch works, see if the transmission shifts smoothly through the gears. We will see. Maybe we'll have more projects coming up with the lower end of the engine. Hopefully not too much. But let's see, in order to get this bike running, to get it to start, we had to replace the intake manifold. The old one was old, dry rotted, huge gaping holes in it. I also had to plug the crankcase breather hole down here with a rubber grommet and a little rubber tube, because apparently you can't install the OEM crankcase breather assembly without splitting the case. And I'm not going to do that just for the crankcase breather. Might have to split the case in the future anyways, and if and when I do, that's when I'll put the new crankcase breather back in. Found something interesting in the carburetor. The brass drain tube was completely cracked from top to bottom, so the float bowl basically would not hold fuel. It would just drain out the overflow, the cracked overflow pipe, out onto the ground. And that's why the previous owner had zip tied it, but that's not a great long-term solution. So the bowl was replaced, and now the carb is working real good. We replaced the air filter, put some new fuel in the tank. Checked the spark plug. Spark plug was real good. Off camera, I checked the compression. Compression was a little low. Came in at 125 psi. It's enough for the bike to run. Obviously, you saw it run. But ideally, it should be above 140. So we might take a look at the piston here in a future video. But for now, my childhood bike, it runs. So I'm very pleased about that. Very pleased that this is a running bike now. And I don't know. Well, like I said, we'll take for a little test ride in probably in the next video here and discover what we discover. So thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you take the time to like this video, be sure to subscribe, and check out the other videos here on Go Hobby. Take care, everyone.